gates opened and a real flood tide of enthusiasm marked the prelude to a high-powered cut-tie battle. A neat bit of taunting before the game gave schoolboys a rough ride to a front seat.
Well, it was rather funny because the headmaster, who of course wasn't very keen on football, of course, and I well remember him coming to me and saying, well, now, Finney, what do you want to be when you leave school? And I said, a professional football player. And he said, my God, what an attitude, that kind of thing. What an ambition. And I said, well, that's what I wanted to be. And it was some 10 or 15 years on that I had rather an amusing incident, because I saw him coming riding up on a bike at the butcher's shop that I was attending, and I had a new Merc outside. So when he came in and said, oh, I take your point, Finney.
This is the story of the golden years of football. The legendary Cup final of 1923 ushered in 30 years of record crowds. Every town had its football heroes, and every back street had its dribblers who dreamt of glory.
Well, in those days, every kid wanted to be a footballer. They wanted to play for his local team. And I used to practice quite often against a wall with a little tennis ball, not a big ball, because we couldn't afford a big ball in those days. And the tennis ball, with being a small ball, I think it improved my ball control.
Well, I used to play in the streets there, you know, like the courts down for goals, five-a-side. They were happy days, those. They were great days. You never thought of anything else, only just having a game of football in the back street at Cobbles until the bobby come and shifted you.
Then when I was 17, of course, that was a big day for me, turn pro. My sign-on fee was £10. I'm a pro. I'm playing for Stoke City. It was there. And £10 to put in the bank was a lot of money.
Tommy Lawton, England's centre-forward and now captain of Notts County, was in great demand before the FA Cup first-round match against the amateurs from Horsham. And now here are some episodes from the match with the spotlight on Tommy, white shirt number 9.
It was nice to be recognised, you know. We thought, ooh, you know, it's everybody's got their ego, I suppose, really, you know. I mean, you walking down the street, if somebody says, oh, yes, yeah. Wouldn't you? I mean, you know, you think, oh, that's nice. How dare you?
It wasn't unusual that the stars should appear in the dressing room. And we could talk with them and frolic with them, shall we say. And on occasions I might even been in the bath with them, but that's beside the point, really.
Well, he said if he won a Cup Winners' Medal, he'd walk on the roof of the Wembley stand. And now he's won it, and holding the cup, presented to him by the Prince Philip.
Well, it means a lot to me, really, because I don't think there's very many people. I think Tom Finney's another one I can't. I think there's about 4 of us who've just played for the one club as a professionals all their lives. I feel very proud of that, because Bolton have always been great with me, especially the fans. I've been really a lucky lad.
thousands of boys fulfilled their dream of playing in the Football League. But there was another side to the life of the professional footballer, now long gone, but not forgotten.
We had no say. We were more or less like slaves in those days.
The clubs operated a tied labour system, which allowed them to retain footballers indefinitely, often against their will. Requesting a transfer was like Oliver Twist asking for more, even if you were the greatest goal scorer in the country.
I said to Harry Cook, who was the trainer, could I see the governor, Harry? What for, he says. Because he got to make an appointment to see the boss. And Harry got on the phone, he said, like, you know, Lon wants to see you, Mr. Kelly, and what's he want? Not that, I don't know, he says, he just wants to see you. Right, send him up in 10 minutes, he says. He says, make sure it is 10 minutes, Harry. 10 minutes on the dot, you see. I knocked on the door, opened the door and walked, stop! I just got inside the door, stop! And I looked round the door, and there's still a big long room, and he's right at the bottom. Sat behind his desk with his papers. Go back outside, close the door, and when you knock, you will hear, come in. And when you come in, stand on that mat and wait until you're told to come in front of me. I said, right, yes, sir, yes. Closed the door, knocked on the door. Come in, stood on the mat, come forward. Closed the door, went, what do you want? I said, well, Mr. Kelly, I've come, you know, I want a transfer, to be honest. I want to get out of it. He says, puts his glasses off and looks at me, he says, you what? You want a transfer? He says, I've been trying to give you away, he says, for this last 4 months, he says. You want a transfer? He said, you know where you've come from, there's the door, open it, close it quietly, press the bell, get into the lift, go downstairs, go and do your training this morning, come back this afternoon and do your training this afternoon, and do the same the rest of the week. Don't waste my time, he said. God, I felt that big. Taught me a lesson. I thought, well, how lucky I am. That was it.
Once you signed for a club, a league club, you were that club's player. And unless they said you can go, you couldn't go. So they could virtually put you out of football. They did that with me. Cliff Britton, he came to Everton as manager. And he wanted a different style of play to what we were used to playing at Everton, which was pure football, pure science, if you like. He wanted the long ball out of the penalty box. We never had rows about it, but he just said, you nearly got us in trouble then. And I used to say to him, well, when I get you in trouble, then come and tell me. But he never did. Instead, he left me out of the side.
Instead of being offered a transfer, T.G. Jones was retained at the club's convenience.
It got to the stage where I couldn't get a game even in the reserve side. So, some friends of mine played games on Saturday, Harden Grammar School Old Boys. They asked me if I'd come and play for them, and I did. Well, you see, it was a bit of a joke, really, because I was captain of Everton and captain of Wales. It was comedy, really, but that's what happened.
Unlike the turnstiles and the pools promoters, the men who make the game seldom make fortunes. Some are lucky enough to become trainers, thus defying the time limit on a footballer's working life. But all too few survive beyond their middle 30s.
It was in 1922, and I would be 30 then. We were playing Plymouth Argyle in the league, and we were top two, you see. Either one or the other had to win to be winners of the league. And Moses Russell, I don't care if he's alive and hears me, he butted me in the mouth. That's all I remember. Next thing I was in the dressing room, dressed up to my waistcoat. We wore waistcoats in those days. I went home and decided that football was my line.
I had several injuries, you know. That knee injury was the worst. Cartilage trouble, you know, to break down. I was never the same after. I had an operation and had the cartilage taken away. I was never the same after, though. I was practically finished. I feel it now. The only one thing they didn't break was my heart.
But even 60 years ago, the star players could expect some special treatment, with a few little extras.
We got a leather suite, yeah. I think it was worth about £400. Remember, then, £400 was a lot of money.
If we were playing in an important cup tie or an important league match, and the boss would come out and say you're on 25 quid for the win, you know, whatnot. Now, £25 is a good backhander if you're only getting tenner a week, isn't it? 2.5 times 2.5, it's 2.5 weeks' wages, you know, and it's tax-free. When I got transferred to Newcastle, Stanley Matthews said, we're prepared to give you £500. And he threw me 500 quid down. 5 bundles, £100. So I said, thank you very much, and start picking it up. So what are you going to do with it, then? Well, I said, I'm trying to put it in the building site. He said, you can't do that. He said, because if you put a lump like that into the building site, people are going to add up and make 2 and 2 to add up to 4, and they'll know where they're going from. So, OK. So Stan said, I told you what to do. He said, take 100. There's 400 there. And Mr. Watt put it in the safe and let Len come and get £20 at a time until the other £400 is finished. And that happened every year that I got. So I was making more money, sort of illegal, if that's the word, than what it was. But that's how it went.
Such dealings were probably the closest players ever got to directors. Most directors were not at ease when face to face with the working men who played the game. Secretary managers were appointed to act as a buffer, but even they wore suits, not tracksuits. And few thought it their place to interfere with tactics or the coaching of the team.
There wasn't any tactics at Newcastle, there wasn't any tactics at Sunderland, basically, really. You know, there weren't any coaches as they are now. We had to form our own tactics.
All we did, well, training methods. Yeah, they used to have the dog track around there, you know. When I went to Stamford Bridge, they were all watching the dogs. That was a training. That was a training at Stamford Bridge. I think I'll back number 4 this afternoon.
We never saw ball. We weren't allowed in football. Dart.
The ball years and years ago never played a part as far as training was concerned. It was just lapping round the ground for about half an hour, 3/4. You probably do, I don't know, 30, 40 laps. And then you'd come and do body with the heavy medicine balls and weights, and then you'd do sort of limbing exercises. And then after, say, for about 5 minutes, you used to throw a ball to play a game. And they used to say, well, you'll be hungry for football, you know, on a Saturday afternoon if you've not seen it all week. Well, as I said, when you saw it, you didn't know what the hell it was. You know, but it was a football.
To get a football, we had to steal a ball from one of the rooms where they were kept. And old Coley used to go mad when if we pinched a ball and went out on the pitch. And he was running around from one to another. We kept the ball flying, you see, and he was trying to get this ball back again. And we'd all keep it rolling until he was shattered and gave in and left us.
Relations with players started to improve in the 1930s, when one or two secretary managers began to appreciate the value of coaching.
The Wolves have a novelty in the shape of a kicking machine, which propels the ball in every direction and keeps all the players on the qui-vive.
At Wolves, one of the great sides of the interwar years, some crude but effective methods were pioneered by Major Frank Buckley.
He was a manager who would manage the club exactly how he wanted to. Major Buckley used to flood the pitch nearly every home game. It was quite well known in the football circles that any team that came to Molineux, when Major Buckley was manager, that they would be playing on a heavy pitch. And it was because he was convinced that he had a team of players who could play better on a heavy pitch than one that was dry.
When we got down to Wolverhampton, the ground was a sea of mud. And there'd been no rain for ages. But they'd flooded the ground until Saturday morning. It'd been underwater, and we went on. Well, we were on our bottoms more than we were on our feet, to be quite honest. And I think we finished the game with about 8 players.
Wolves are favourites of the team in black shorts. After scoring in the first half, Wolves carried all before them and scored another goal by Western, making them 2-0 and putting them into the semi-final.
They used to take these monkey gland things as a stimulant, and they must have taken them on this particular day because they murdered us.
When we went to Wolves, we knew they were on these pills. And when we went in, I saw Stan Cullis, because having played with him in the England side, only met him, you know, being in the England side. Hello, Stan, I said, and he walked past me with glazed eyes. There's no question they were on these monkey spells here, they definitely were. And after they licked us 7-1, I was sure they were.
No, it was purely Major Buckley's idea of getting the headlines. We'd had an anti-flu injection, and he'd managed to transfer it to the press as being the monkey gland treatment.
La-di-da-di-da, la-di-da-di-da, all good pals and jolly good company. Hey!
Buckley was overshadowed by the man many feel was the greatest manager of the era, Herbert Chapman. This miner's son felt no embarrassment dealing with footballers. At Huddersfield Town and then Arsenal, Chapman was renowned for his fatherly manner.
What a trainer, what a manager. You always had a glycerine tablet to give you, put in your mouth. I always remember that. First we put it in our mouth, get it on the food and throw it away, glycerine.
And he had such a silky, gentle voice when he talked to you. you couldn't take offence at anything he said to you. If he told you were a silly bugger, you know, you just, well, I'm a silly bugger. That's how I felt, anyway.
He wouldn't allow us any cigarettes if he could help it. He used to look after us, tell us to behave ourselves, no messing about, no ladies.
Well, obviously he wouldn't like you to go up Piccadilly and pick one or two fluses up.
Chapman took Huddersfield Town to a record 3 consecutive championships. His success continued at Arsenal.
Here's Mr. Herbert Chapman, the famous manager, with his lads at Highbury. And now I'm going to ask him to introduce them to you. Mr. Chapman?
I must apologise this morning. I'm so husky, I can scarcely speak. But my deputy, old Tom Whittaker, will perform. Now, Tom.
What I do remember of him, he said, always remember this is a skillful game. And it is that football you have got to master.
But they have one unusual game. They call it football tennis. You can head the ball or kick it, but you mustn't handle it.
So you had to keep it off the ground. So we learned an awful lot about ball play and ball control and mastering the football on that game. And then we had a shooting box where it used to come off at all angles. And you'd whack it from all angles.
Drake kicks off for Arsenal in the league match against Villa wearing white shorts. Arsenal goes quickly ahead thanks to their centre-forward Drake, who has apparently decided to win the match on his own. Continuing his display of brilliant opportunism, he plays ducks and drakes with the Villa defence. Villa's expensive experts are unavailing, and Drake scores at regular intervals, getting 2 more in the first half. To Villa's 1, he gets 7, equaling the league record of 47 years standing.
And one thing I remember was that I cracked the ball, hit the bar, came down, and the bar must have put spit on the ball because it came out and it was already over. And it so happened that the referee that day was Mr. George Reeder, a great friend of mine and a Southampton colleague of mine. And I claimed for another goal, and he said, "Oh, blimey, Ted," he says, "you've got 7 already."
Everyone knows that the newsreels won the cup final, though Arsenal got all the credit. Captain Alex James, with goal scorer Drake, refused to hand over the cup to our heroic cameramen. And quite a number of soccer fans turned out to see the conquering heroes arrive at the Islington Town Hall for their civic reception.
Arsenal won the FA Cup and 2 championships under Chapman. But in the year of a 3rd consecutive title, he died suddenly of pneumonia. In raising the esteem of his players, Chapman became the godfather of the great managers to come. His successor was George Allison, a man with a very modern instinct for public relations.
A photograph with 2 of these lovely film stars on the playing pitch with their arms around me and all that in those days. Oh dear, can you imagine? They were beautiful. And there was me about, 18 years of age, 17, 18 years old.
If playing for Arsenal was like a warm bath, playing for your country could be more like a cold shower.
When you're picked to play for England, you would receive a notification from the Football Association. Dear Hardwick, you have been selected to play for England against Scotland at Hampden Park. You will report to the hotel in Scotland, in Glasgow, at such and such a time, bringing with you your boots, etc., and a bar of soap.
Whenever we went away, the directors were in the first class and the players were in the third. And that was very nice indeed, you know, to realise where you stood. In other words, you were a second-class citizen and they were top meat.
Cup final enthusiasm prevails in Berlin when England meet Germany on the soccer field. All the courtesies are observed before the start. God Save the King is played.
We could see that it was a game that had been fashioned with propaganda intentions right at the start. We were informed by the FA that we were to give the Nazi salute. And I, along with other players in the England team, objected. But at the same time, we were informed in a nice diplomatic way that if we didn't give the Nazi salute, we wouldn't be selected for any future England games.
And then the British ambassador, Sir Neville Anderson, he came and talked to us, and then we decided we'll do the salute. Yeah. And that was the time when the secretary, Stanley Matthews, he said, win today, there'll be a case of cutlery.
After England have taken a 3-1 lead, Matthews, their right winger, runs through to add a fourth.
When we played, we were a club side, and the FA ordered us to, we'd got to give the Nazi salute, you see. So Jimmy Hogan told Alec Massey and the Scops lads, he says, we've got to do it, you know, we've got to, I know you don't want to do it, you've got to do it. So we went to the centre of the field. Bollocks, you square-headed bastard. He gave them the two fingers and they cheered like mad. But the funniest penalty I ever took, we were playing in Hamburg, and I was taking my time and putting this ball on the spot, and the German goalkeeper came off his line. He says, "You English pig, you English pig." He was trying to put me off, you see. I said, all right, mate. I said, you keep calm. I says, you get back on your line. I says, and I'll endeavour to knock your square head into a round un. And it just missed his head going in and hit the stanchion, just missed his head coming out. And he was in the floor, and I says, you look a little on.
At one of the camps somewhere in Britain, ex-German sailors saved from sunken U-boats and ex-German airmen whose planes were brought down are learning to start life afresh in more peaceful jobs. And if you could read deep down into his heart, maybe you'd find him saying, well, it isn't so bad to get away from it after all. All work and no play makes even Fritz a dull boy. So it's the German U-boat service versus the German Air Force at Fußball.
I came to the notice, even as a POW, to some of the professional clubs. Eventually I signed for Man City. And of course there were apprehension in the followers of, you know, the supporters of Man City signing a German. There were marches with banners, you know, saying, if you sign this German, we are going to boycott the matches, and so on and so on.
The first reaction from myself was, oh, bloody kraut. coming to Main Road. But it didn't turn out that way. You began to like the when you got to know him, he was a great fella. Great fella, was a brilliant goalkeeper. No doubt at all about that.
It was the Rabbi of Manchester, Mr. Altman, who said, "You're silly people. You can't blame a single German for what happened during the war. So let him show us that he is a good player. In the first game, we should have lost." So the paper said, 7, 8, 9-0. And we lost 1-0. So consequently, they said I had a marvellous game. And when the game had finished, the crowd stood up and applauded me. And I think that was the most moving, aspect of my footballing life.
When the season began, nearly 1,200,000 people went to see the opening games, and I believe that's an all-time record. About 65,000 of them were at White Hart Lane to see how the promoted Spurs would fare in their battle against Blackpool. Not that there weren't sideshows, as you'll notice.
It was no secret that we went to football. We would leave school, there was a back entrance, and we'd take our school hats and push them in our satchels and make ourselves not look like, as much as we could, not look like girls from the county grammar school. And off we would go over the railway bridge and up Manchester Road.
Half running up
to the second
Manchester
half.
Road to get
and
there
that
for the
was
second
what we
half.
did. And we were never found out.
The boom in attendances caught Burnden Park, Bolton's ground, dangerously unprepared.
They were starved of football, you see, during the war, and Stoke City had Stanley Matthews, who were, he wasn't a great attraction. And I think that contributed to that day. We got into the stand about 3 rows from the front. We had a good view of what was going on, but little did we realise that it was serious, so serious. You were going up there, climbing on the railway, walking along back at ground and climbing over. And it caused a lot of pressure on this end.
I was beginning to be so uncomfortable that I asked the men in front of me if I could pass them and come down, because I wanted to get onto the track where I think a few people had climbed over the fence. And these men said, there's no way you can get down there. And the next thing I knew, they'd lifted me up above their heads. It was really marvellous of them. And I was passed over the heads down onto the track. Not very dignified, but I was very glad to get out of it. And when I got onto the track, on the pitch, in that corner, there were a number of bodies. The people were dead, and I should think there were possibly, I don't know, maybe 8, 10 lying on the ground.
When we were playing, I turned round and I saw the fans coming over the fences and sitting down on the touchline. We didn't know what happened.
And I thought they were fainting cases, because you could see there was a bit of commotion on the terrace there. And the person who ran on, he just said to the referee, "Will you stop the game, please? Those people are dead."
Referee blew his whistle and went into the dressing room, and we didn't know what was happening. It was only afterwards. And the referee came in and said, "Well, we better finish this match." He didn't say there was any disasters or anything like that. It would never impact until the next morning when you read all the newspapers, which was terrible.
Matthews and Lofthouse met again, on happier occasions, but none so famous as in the cup final 7 years later. For many, the abiding symbol of the golden age.
Stanley Matthews presented to Prince Philip with the Blackpool and Bolton teams. What a year, what a day it was, this Coronation Cup final of 1953.
Everyone in Britain wanted Stan Matthews to win a cup final medal because he'd won every other honour and he'd never won a cup winner's medal. And I think, apart from Bolton people I'm talking about...
The first sensation of a sensational cup final came in the first minute. Bolton attacking, the ball comes into centre-forward Lofthouse, who shoots from long range and beats far. 1-up to Bolton.
What I remember mostly about it is winning 3-1 and 17 minutes to go. And I thought, not that it made any difference, I thought, like, well, we're still here, we're going to win here. And 3-1, and then suddenly Matthews came into the act.
Then a pass found Stanley Matthews. A burst of speed, the Wizard's touch, and the ball scrambled home. Blackpool were fighting back.
Now, it was 3-3. I didn't know how long it was to go. And the ball was pushed out, and there's only one move I'm going to do. And if I can beat him on his left side, I'm in the box. I'm in the penalty box. And as I beat him, there's a big gap, and Bill Perry. You know, it was a simple pass.
And this time, the goal that won the cup. When it was his turn to meet the Queen and shake hands, what a roar from the crowd for this great spirited player. The starriest moment of his career, the Coronation Cup final.
Winning a medal, that was ambition when you were a young boy. It was a great feeling.
Remembering the years leading up to the glory of 1966, kicking and screaming at the same time, 2:45 on Monday afternoon here on BBC Two.